This video describes the installation of the Accu-Slice bandsaw accessory. Over the past 2 years, we have made 8 different revisions of the Accu-Slice system. With each revision, we have made improvements in both design and performance. The Accu-Slice system was developed to provide for safer resawing of wood boards and to provide for smoother and cleaner bandsaw cuts that would not require excessive sanding or even planing to remove the rough surface left by the bandsaw blade. When I resawn boards in the past using a bandsaw with a fence, any change in hand pressure or hand position resulted in bandsaw blade marks left on the wood being cut. These marks later to be removed either by sanding or planing. Also, with conventional resawing on a bandsaw with a fence, blade drift is an issue, again requiring additional planing and sanding to smooth out the rough surface left by the bandsaw blade. In addition, with conventional bandsaw resawing, your hands and fingers are very close to the bandsaw blade, making this a serious safety issue. Finding when using a conventional bandsaw and fence, safely cutting small, irregular, and round-shaped pieces of wood is near impossible. The Accu-Slice system overcomes all of these obstacles. Visit our website for additional details on features of the Accu-Slice system and applications for your projects. 3 different models of the Accu-Slice system are available, depending on the size of your bandsaw table. This basic model will fit tables 15 to 17 inch. 2 other models are available for larger systems. The Accu-Slice system consists of 3 components: the index table, the rail, and the carriage. The index table consists of the miter bar locking system, the sliding table assembly, and the indexing system. The indexing system enables the accurate dialing in of the exact wood thickness required for your project. The standard Accu-Slice rail is 36 inches long, which will enable the cutting of boards up to 24 inches long. For longer boards, rails 48 inches long, 60 inches long, and 72 inches long are also available. The standard L bracket carriage is 12 inches long. Other sizes are also available. The bottom plate on the L bracket contains the roller bearings, which slide on the rail to permit the smooth cuts obtained with the Accu-Slice system. Also included with the Accu-Slice package are the screws and bolts needed to install the system. This consists of 6 3/4 inch wood screws to attach the sacrificial fence and 3 hex head Allen bolts to attach the rail to the index table. The only tools required to install the Accu-Slice are a Phillips head screwdriver and 2 Allen wrenches. Tools are not included with the system. An accessory set of 2 MagJig 95 magnetic clamps with mounting hardware is available as an accessory for the Accu-Slice. Before we begin the installation of the Accu-Slice system, we must first do some general maintenance on the bandsaw system itself. There's a number of videos on YouTube which describe this in quite a bit of detail, so I'll just touch on a few highlights that I think are important for the Accu-Slice system installation. We first of all begin by thoroughly vacuuming the system inside and out to remove all the sawdust, which I've already done in this case. I would follow this up with a general cleaning of the tires of the bandsaw. It's important that all the debris, sawdust that's been ground in, be removed. And this is most easily done with just a thin solution of soap and water, just to clean the 2 wheels. For bandsaw blade selection, the greater number of teeth per inch, the finer the cut you're going to get on your bandsaw. But it really depends on the thickness of the wood you're going to be cutting. If I'm resawing wood 4 inches and larger in thickness, I would probably use blades of 4 to 6 teeth per inch. If I'm cutting wood 1 to 3 inches thick, I would probably use blades of 6 to 8 teeth per inch. If I'm cutting segmented disc and smaller pieces of wood, I would probably use 8 to 10 teeth per inch. And if I'm doing the actual segment blocks for wood for making segmented disc, I might use 10 to 14 teeth per inch. We typically use blades of the rake tooth design, 1/2 inch in width. These are Timberwolf blades with a kerf of 50/1000 of an inch. Yeah, I'm just going to install a blade according to the manufacturer's recommendations. I adjust my guides so that they're properly tensioned against the blade. Position the Accu-Slice index table by aligning the miter bar on the index table with the miter slot in the bandsaw tabletop. Note that on some bandsaws, the hardware from the fence may interfere with the operation of the Accu-Slice, so you may need to remove the fence from your bandsaw. Next, make sure this system is centered on the bandsaw table, and then by holding the Accu-Slice table flat against the bandsaw tabletop, tighten the 3 locking nuts on the miter bar. Being careful not to over tighten these nuts. They are factory set and should not require more than a quarter turn. If you turn them more than that, they could possibly be damaged. After that's done, you can loosen the 2 coarse adjustment screws, and the Accu-Slice should slide freely back and forth across the bandsaw tabletop. As an accessory to the Accu-Slice, we now offer 2 MagJig 95 magnetic clamps with mounting hardware. These magnetic clamps are not part of the standard Accu-Slice package and are not normally required for cutting small boards such as a segmented disc. However, for boards over 12 inches long and to obtain even smoother bandsaw cuts, these magnetic clamps are highly recommended. Even when cutting smaller boards, these clamps will further improve the smoothness of the cuts, which we will later demonstrate. The purpose of these clamps is to lock the Accu-Slice system firmly to the bandsaw tabletop to minimize any additional vibration of the wood being cut. The result is cleaner and even smoother bandsaw cuts. Mounting holes for these systems have been provided on the Accu-Slice table. Using the 2 screws and the spacers provided, attach the 2 MagJigs to the bandsaw tabletop. These 2 clamps will give extra rigidity to the system after the coarse and fine knobs have been tightened, and further lock the system down so it will not move. It will be real sturdy and get definitely smoother cuts because the vibration will be eliminated. Before turning your index knob, though, you have to make sure that you release these knobs so your index system will turn. But then after your system's adjusted, you will lock these down and you'll be ready to run. Next, we want to attach the rail to the index table. And the rail, there are 5 holes. 2 of these holes are for alignment pins on the Accu-Slice tabletop, and the other 3 holes are for attaching screws. So just align the rail with the alignment pins and then insert the 3 screws and lock these in place with the Allen wrench. The standard rail is 36 inches long, which will suffice for most applications. This will enable you to cut boards up to 24 inches long. However, if you need to cut longer boards, we have 48-inch, 60-inch, and even 72-inch length rails for those applications. The Accu-Slice Carriage consists of an aluminum L bracket with 2 handles, and on the base 3 ball bearings. These are designed to ride in the guides on the rail, and you would just slide this into the system, and when installed it should slide easily back and forth on the rail. This smooth travel is the reason the Accu-Slice system can cut wood so smoothly and cleanly, because there's minimal vibration because we're riding on ball bearings. The standard carriage is 12 inches long. We also make a 6-inch carriage and a 24-inch carriage for longer boards. Next, we're going to install the sacrificial fence. The purpose of the sacrificial fence is to eliminate the possibility of the bandsaw blade cutting into your aluminum L bracket. The fence can be made of any material such as plywood or MDF or plastic. In this case, this was made out of 1/2-inch MDF, and I did seal it with shellac and polyurethane. This gives it a smoother surface and makes the attachment and release of the double-sided tape much easier. The sacrificial fence is then attached to the carriage with 3/4-inch wood screws. For best operation, this sacrificial fence should actually ride just on the top, the bandsaw table's top. It's then attached with the 3/4 inch wood screws. You may want to pre-drill the holes just to make it easier to get the screws started. My fence here is actually 20 inches long, and my carriage is only 12 inches long. By putting the longer fence on the carriage, I now have the ability to saw boards up to 24 inches in length. In practice, really, the board is attached to your fence shouldn't be more than 1 or 2 inches longer than the sacrificial fence. Otherwise, you might get some excessive vibration, which will again result in marks on your wood that you're cutting. And after it's installed, it should just slide over the tabletop and slide cleanly and easily along the carriage. And one final note, you may want to adjust the tabletop on your bandsaw to make sure that your sacrificial fence is perfectly parallel to the blade. This isn't critical since your first cut will square off the board, but this can reduce the amount of waste from the boards you're going to be cutting. Okay, we're now ready to cut our first board. I've taken a piece of walnut here, applied some double-sided tape, and I'm going to attach this to the sacrificial fence. The wood can actually ride on the tabletop. And what I'm going to do is attach the wood and then use some parallel clamps to just seat the tape for 15 to 60 seconds. The purpose of this clamping is just to set the tape to make sure you have a good contact with the sacrificial fence, and it'll give her a good joint that won't come loose when you're sawing. It's important that the board you're cutting be straight and parallel and it's flat against the sacrificial fence. If it's warped or loose, it's not going to seat properly. In addition, as I mentioned before, the board should not exceed the length of your sacrificial fence by more than 1 or 2 inches. After a few seconds, those clamps will be removed. Make sure your clamps are all loose. Slide the board in position and bring it up close to the blade. And what I'm going to do in this first cut, I'm just going to cut off 20 or 30 thousandths of wood just to give me a flat surface for the board. And then I tighten my coarse adjusting screws. The fine adjusting screws and these clamps are still loose. And what I typically do initially is set this index knob to 0 as a starting point. Just readjust my position to give me my 20 or 30 thousandths cut. Lock my coarse adjusting screws. And at this point I can lock my indexing system, and in this case I'm going to actually turn on the MagJigs to lock it to the table. This secures everything very firmly to the tabletop. Next thing I want to do is make sure my top guides on the bandsaw are as close to the sacrificial fence as possible. And we're ready to do our first cut. Note in doing that cut, my hands are way back here, far away from the bandsaw blade. making this a much safer way to resaw wood on the bandsaw. In addition, I was feeding the wood at maybe 10 inches a minute. The slower you feed the wood through the bandsaw, the smoother the cut. And this is our first cut off the bandsaw. Very smooth. You would never get that doing free sawing with a fence on a bandsaw. We're now ready to actually do our first thickness piece of wood on the bandsaw with the Accu-Slice. And again, now I'd release my clamps, both the MagJigs and my fine adjust, and then I would turn this knob one full revolution, which is 50 thousandths of an inch, which is the kerf of my blade. And then if I wanted a piece of wood as thin as 10 thousandths, I could dial it in at 10 thousandths. In this case, I'm going to cut a piece of wood 50 thousandths inch thick, which is another full revolution of the knob. And this board, and then tighten my fine adjust and tighten my mag switches. What makes the system so nice is this piece of wood will be exactly 50 thousandths of an inch end to end, top to bottom. And I can make subsequent boards and cuts of the exact same dimension. This is a comparison of normal bandsaw slicing using the conventional bandsaw fence versus using the Accu-Slice system. This confirms that the Accu-Slice system provides for significant improvement in the smoothness and quality of the bandsaw cut. The bottom picture demonstrates that by adding the MagJig clamps, the quality of the bandsaw cut is even further improved. Next, I'm going to cut a piece of wood 10 thousandths of an inch thick. I've advanced the Accu-Jig one full revolution of the indexing wheel, which is 50 thousandths, and then another 10 thousandths. And then lock everything in place. And we're ready to cut. And there we have a piece of wood, 10 thousandths of an inch thick. Question often arises is how strong does the double-sided tape hold the wood to the fence? It actually holds it very well, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get off. I've used a chisel. In this case I use a putty knife, which I've ground to a finer point to and you see it took some work to get that off the fence. So it does hold very well. For this next application, I'm cutting a longer board. So I have installed a 5-foot rail and my 24-inch carriage with a 30-inch sacrificial fence. And I'm cutting a piece of cherry, 30 inches long, 1.5 inches thick, to make some boards for doing some segmented wood turning. And I'll be cutting some strips 50 thousandths and 100 thousandths thick for this application. So I've mounted everything to the fence. I got everything set up. I got my 0 point. Everything's locked down, and we're ready to start cutting this 30-inch long piece of cherry. From that one cherry board, which was 1.5 inches thick by 2 inches wide, I was able to cut 8 pieces, 50 thousandths of an inch thick, and 6 pieces, 100,000 inch thick. Each piece perfectly parallel, straight, no burn marks, minimal saw marks, smooth surfaces. Perfect for making my laminated strips requiring no additional sanding.